Well, we're out at the top of the hour, and we want to, respect all of you who are here on time and get started. So, thank you for coming to the continuing series of academic software training from the source. Today, we're joined by folks from Turning Technology, and they're going to be talking about their product Turning Point. We've got Tim Gordon and Kevin Hersoltz, who can
have a conferencing going on, but they can't hear me. Okay. So you can talk, come in and out.
Okay. So I will let them kind of also introduce themselves and their role in their company, but we're sure glad you could all join us and learn something new. The folks at Turning Point are running a pilot this coming fall semester at BYU, and if you're interested, you're more than welcome to contact them. I think they'll be giving their contact information out, or you can contact me here at the CTL, and I can put you in touch with them so that you can be part of the pilot if you're interested. Also of note, we will not have a webinar next week because the CTL has a few other things going on Wednesday during the morning. So the following week, we'll have our next in the series with a company called Bungee Link, and we'll send out more information on that soon. Anyway, without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Tim and Kevin, who will present. And thank you again all for coming.
Tim, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Tim Gordon. I'm the account consultant for BYU, and happy to go ahead and get this free pilot set in place for everyone to try in their classroom this semester coming up. And Mike, thank you for having us. We definitely appreciate you organizing everything. And Kevin Herholtz, our Vice President of Client Success, is going to go ahead and get us kicked off today. And I believe Kevin has a hard stop at 1:30. From there, Greg Thomas, our Director of Higher Education Sales, will be joining us before then to go ahead and take the reins. And towards the end, we'll save some time for some questions and answers. So again, thank you, everybody, for your time. I look forward to working with you.
Tim, appreciate that. Again, everybody, this is Kevin Herholtz over at Turning Technologies. I'm the Vice President of Client Success, and Mike, again, appreciate the opportunity to come aboard today and walk through Turning Point a little bit. You know, I was on campus in Provo it was almost exactly 3 years ago, and I still tell people to this day that is perhaps the most beautiful campus that I've stepped foot on. So I had an opportunity to meet with Mike and a few of his colleagues back then. So it is good to be speaking with everyone today, and let's talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing today. As Tim mentioned, I do have a hard stop. That's 1:30 Eastern, by the way. So about half past the hour, I have a hard stop to go to another meeting. Today is not meant to be a training, though. Okay, so I'm not going to be necessarily going through a point and click of exactly how I've done things. I want to let you know as kind of a takeaway that with our client success team at Turning Technologies, we do exactly that. So we will set up one-on-one meetings to actually do a new user training, get you up to speed, point and click, work with you really one-on-one. And something that we do that's kind of unique is that we have a client success leader that will actually be assigned to you. So when you're using our products, you don't have to call into a support line or some type of main line with our company. You would just call your client success leader. You'll have their cell phone. You can text them. You guys can set up a meeting, and they're very responsive. So I want you to go ahead and keep that in mind as a takeaway. But again, my job today is just kind of give you an overview of the product, show you some of the what I think are pretty cool pedagogical tools that are built right in. And again, as a takeaway, you're more than welcome to go ahead and contact me. And I know Tim is going to go ahead and provide all of our contact information. So with that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen at this time. So let me figure out how to do that. That's got to be step one for me, right? Figure out how to share the screen. Share screen. Click share, and Tim, if you don't mind, if you can verify that the screen is indeed sharing.
It is. We can see it.
Thanks, Mike.
Hardly see it.
All right, so before we begin, I want today's session to be completely interactive. So I'd like everybody to go ahead and have an opportunity to experience turning points as a participant would. And in order to do that, there's a demo site that you can go to, and you'll see that URL on my screen. It's ttpoll.com. So as a student, you can participate within a session in that remote setting by either downloading the Turning Point app on your iPhone or Android device, or you can actually go to your student account. Now, the student account is technically student.turningtechnologies.com. So when they have an account with us, they would go there. But you'll notice when you go to the shortcut ttpoll.com that it does redirect. So when you make your way to ttpoll.com or quickly download that Turning Point app, it's going to immediately ask you for the session ID. And you can see the session ID today is Kevin123. So again, as you have those students, whether it's in a blended environment, whether it's live remote, or when we get back to that classroom, which is kind of 3 of those 4 settings that Mike has within his department there. A great video, by the way, Mike, that I watched last night. And that's how the students will go ahead and join using the mobile device and also the browser. It's just making their way to their student account or downloading the Turning Point app. So I'm going to give it just about another 30 seconds or so for you to make your way, again, over to just a separate browser. It could be on your cell phone or on a separate browser on your computer. Go to ttpoll.com, put in the session ID, Kevin123, and you should see my very first slide, which says, welcome, BYU, join the mobile session. So you'll see the same thing that is on my screen. All right, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm actually going to run through a few slides, and it is the educator in me. That's kind of how I came up through the company to back out, and I'll at least show you in general how I've done it. Again, I don't want this to turn into a complete point and click, but I don't want you to walk away not having an understanding of really the ease of use. And I'd like to go ahead and start today by just talking about kind of where we are in terms of this type of technology. So obviously right now, we're dealing with everybody working remotely, and we know kind of that passive teaching method at the top, that lecture and the reading, it's not very effective. We want interaction with the students. We need feedback with the students, and we really need engagement more than ever. So we have tools that are built right within the software that do promote the participatory teaching methods of teaching others, practice by doing, group discussion. We'll talk about gamification today. We'll talk a little bit about peer instruction. So we have those tools that are really embedded right within the software that enable you to do it very easily in terms of the setup and very simply in terms of facilitation. So to go ahead and get started here, guys, this is a first question type that we have, which is just a word cloud. And so you'll be able to go ahead and put in an open response of where you're joining us from. Okay, so with this question, it will be an open response. And when I close the polling, we're going to see the results coming in kind of a cloud format. Now, I had the option to go ahead and show these results coming in real time. So as you answer, if we could have saw the cloud populating, or with this word cloud, we have an opportunity to go ahead and show the results afterwards, which I'll choose to do. Okay, so I see I have 14 responses. I want you to keep in mind as you're answering these questions, this is PowerPoints. Okay, so I am within Microsoft PowerPoint. The Turning Point PowerPoint polling is basically just an add-on within the PowerPoint that you already have. So think about your PowerPoints if you use that you maybe have been using with your students for a couple semesters. You do not have to recreate those PowerPoints. You would just embed your interactive slides right within those already existing PowerPoints. So nothing, again, needs to be reconstructed from scratch. You just go ahead and bring in Turning Point within the equation and add the interactivity. All right, so I can see I have 16 responses. I'm going to advance on my PowerPoint just one time to now close the polling, and I'm going to be able to see my word cloud. So we can see good distribution. We have Youngstown, that's going to be my team. We have Utah, home, obviously the most popular response. Why do I know that? It is in the center of the word cloud and also in the largest text. So again, everybody, welcome in. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is our gamification tools. And I would say that, out of everybody out there, we probably have some of the more robust gamification tools because we've been focused on developing our gamification capabilities, both on an individual standpoint and a team standpoint. So to start out this game, I need you to go ahead and select yourself onto a team. Now, keep in mind with your students, you could have pre-assigned them onto a team. Maybe you want to do it based on their major, traditional male, female, whatever it may be, or however you can have them self-select like you're doing right now. All right, so this is something called a team assignment slide. So with a team assignment slide, you're selecting yourself onto a team for this upcoming competition. So I hope you're feeling extra competitive here this late morning for you guys because we do have some competition questions coming up. So I have 15 responses to keep things rolling along. I'll go ahead and close my polling, and we are going to be able to see the distribution. 60-40, Cougars, slightly more. That's quite all right, though. We'll talk about scoring in a moment. All right, so first question is, this is the highest point in North America. Just a basic multiple choice question. Keep in mind, again, I just built this right within, quite honestly, an existing PowerPoint that I already had. I just kind of changed the title on my first slide. So rather than Welcome Florida Atlantic University, which I did the other day, it's Welcome Brigham Young. But I say that to emphasize that I'm using the same PowerPoint, and you can use your same content as well. You don't have to recreate it. You just simply add the interactive slides. All right, so we're up to our 15 or 16 responses. So again, I will go ahead and click to close my polling. Once I close my polling, we will see that nice job, everybody. B, Denali, formerly Mount McKinley, is indeed the correct answer. We could see 82% got it correct. Now, as I advance, this is a slide called a participant leaderboard slide. I love this slide because of two reasons. Number one, you can see kind of where you're ranking in the competition, right? So, Mike, nice job right there. Now, why are some people getting more points than other people? Well, I can make this even more engaging by adding a timing element to it as well. It's something called speed scoring. So basically, for lack of further explanation, for every second that it takes a student to get the question correct would be one less point that they would receive. I actually made this question worth 50 points. All right, so we move on here. We can see a team score. Okay, BYU right now in front, 22.55 to 10.23. How does it get the team scores? Well, if it's worth 50 points, it's basically taking an average of how many students on that team to get it correct to assign the points. All right, so let's go to our next question. This one, you're going to notice that it's a numeric response question. All right, so a little bit different. And you'll notice when I escape out of presentation mode in a moment here, there's a variety of different question types. Okay, so a lot of different question types you can choose from. Multiple choice, short answer, numeric response. We have hotspots, we have word clouds, and we have a lot of things you can go ahead and do to build on top of those question types as well. All right, so Lavelle Edwards, everybody. Of course, everybody knows that, right? Head coach back then. I think the quarterback was Steve Young, if I'm not mistaken. So at this time, I'll go ahead and close my polling. So it's going to rank responses, by the way. So it'll rank my top 6 responses. If I had anything more than that, I could actually shuffle through all the responses. But we could see 1984. Nice job, everybody, because 1984 is indeed the correct answer. All right, so I advance again. This time I have something called a fastest responder. So the fastest responder is not actually a scoreboard, but it will show me who was the fastest as well as correct responder from the previous question. So we have Michael in 7.0 seconds, almost exactly, put in 1984. So nice job there. And of course, I did do speed scoring with this, so Michael would have received slightly more points. All right, so next question. We have a kind of a different type of question here. This is something called a hotspot or a click on target. So we have an opportunity to go ahead and click on the image. This time we are looking for where the cerebellum is located on this image of the brain. So we have a bit of a potpourri of questions, right? We have a little college football, maybe a little biology, perhaps a little geography there. Okay, so up to 20 responses, good to see. So I'll go ahead and close my polling at this time. Nice work, everybody who has the green right within that little peanut shape in the lower right-hand side. That is the cerebellum. We have some frontal lobe over here and some other areas, but we can see that in green that it was correct. All right, so there's my points. Again, this is aggregating. I promise I did not give Mike this presentation in advance, so keep that in mind. There's my team scores, BYU ahead of the Cougars there. All right, so I got my last question coming up, but before I ask you my last question, I want to ask, what percentage of your current points would you like to wager on the next question? So think of this as a Jeopardy style. Okay, so this is a template slide that we have that you can add in to, again, just kind of get the engagement level up. We know as educators, if the students are engaged, the likelihood that they're going to go ahead and understand and retain, and most importantly, apply the information dramatically increases. Now, this time when I close the polling, I am not going to see a chart, but I can click to go ahead and move along to the next question. All right, so last question here. This is the largest freshwater lake in the world, and you can see your 4 different options there. Now, a couple of things I want to go ahead and point out here. So I could actually see some activity of what's going on within the presentation as I'm polling. So I have some great tools up here that I can go ahead and choose from. Okay, so I can bring in something called a response grid where I can see who has answered and who hasn't answered. I can see if you change your answers. I can actually see that Trisha and Michael actually did change their response. So I can see that all in real time. I can even go ahead and bring in a messaging window in real time. Okay, so with my messaging window, I could send either open chat messages to everyone, or I may want to go ahead and send a direct message to Len. And just send it to Len, and now Len is going to receive it, and really no one else. And Len and I can have a back and forth conversation with each other. So really a lot of great tools, including an attendance tool up on what we call the show bar. All right, so we close the polling. This time we can see, nice job, everybody. Lake Superior indeed was the correct answer. Leading from the beginning, Mike, nice work there. Greg was getting ground. Yeah, gaining some ground, but you held on right to the end with 298 points. There's my team scores. And then finally, we have what's called a team MVP. Team MVP is the individual who scored the most points for the team. Whether that team came in first place or last place, it didn't matter. All right, so before I back out of presentation mode, I want to go to another type of questions that we have embedded inherently within the software. So this is something called peer instruction. Before I go to my peer instruction question, let me talk about, for those that are not familiar, how peer instruction works. So I would typically begin by asking some type of question that I know I'm going to have a variation of answer choices. Okay, so something maybe more conceptual, something perhaps where it needs to be debated, what have you. I would ask it, but I would not show the results. After I would close polling, I would tell my students, go find another student who answered differently than you, and I want you to spend 2 minutes to convince that student why your answer is the better answer choice. So they discuss for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, they come back, and then they ask the question again, or you'd ask the question again, and the students would respond one more time. And through this peer instruction, you're going to be able to see how they answered the first time compared to the second time. And I will tell you, last summer around this time, I was at University of Tennessee. It's actually a little bit later because class already started. But I was actually in about a 350 student classroom, and the instructor did peer instruction, and you'd be amazed how on task those freshman level students now were on topic. So it was pretty amazing to see. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. Here's my question. Your sister calls and says she's having twins. Which of the following is more likely? Okay, assume that she is not having identical twins. All right, so twin boys, twin girls, one boy, one girl, all are equally likely. So again, this might be a question, right? Where you have some variation. Some students are thinking of it one way, thinking of another way. You know, maybe we're talking about, anybody remember Punnett squares? A long time ago, I used to teach middle school science, and that was on my curriculum. All right, so I'm going to close the polling. Now, as I close the polling, notice you don't see a chart. If this was authentic, I tell you to go find somebody who answered different than yourselves and convince them why your answer choice was correct. After the 2 minutes, we come back, and you're going to respond to the question once again. All right, so I have responses coming in. If some of you would be so kind to answer differently, that way we can go ahead and show what the chart would look like. All right, so again, we have responses coming in here. As the responses come in, I'm now going to go ahead and close the polling. This time I've chosen to show the results. By the way, I hope this is correct. It's one boy and one girl. At least that's what I'm sure a very reliable internet site showed me. And as I advance, I'm going to be able to see the difference now. So the first time around, I asked it, 41% said one boy, one girl, but it actually went down to 29% the second time. But we can see all are equally likely actually increased. Okay, So how did I do these things? I did these things just by using the Turning Point embedded tab. So when you have Turning Point on your computer and you open it up, there's an opportunity to enter into what's called PowerPoint polling. That gives you the integration with PowerPoint. So as I'm building PowerPoint slides, I just go to my home tab, go to new slide, and I just have PowerPoint slides. But the moment that I want to go ahead and build an interactive slide, I click on the Turning Point tab, and I go to this new button on the left-hand side. And you can see a variety of different question types. We experienced some of these. So we have done a multiple choice. We did a short answer. Actually, we didn't do a short answer. We did numeric response, but there's a short answer in there, a word cloud. We did the hotspot. That was with the cerebellum. But you can also see variations such as demographics. Demographics, maybe you want to see within the reporting mechanism how all the freshmen answered versus the sophomores, or really any way that you want to set it up. Here's a little trick too. You can actually preset the demographics where the students don't even know that you're tracking in those groups. Again, I'm not trying to be sneaky, but you can really see some great information with that. Okay, priority ranking, you can rank answer choices, fantastic. And as I make my way over to tools, we have add-ons of different things that we can do on top of it as well. So the comparative links is how I did the peer instruction. We have conditional branching, where depending on how the students answered would determine which slide it goes to next. And I will tell you, I actually do have a picture question here. I completely forgot about that. So I do have one more question. I like this question here. All right, so here's my next one. So the question is, which of these images show Lavelle Edwards Stadium? And you know what? I just realized that I built this maybe through PowerPoint. Okay, so that's my error on that. So I built it through PowerPoint and I tried to make the conversion. The conversion didn't work. Just realized I actually did that this morning. So we'll get back to it, but everybody knows it's B, right? You don't need me to tell you that. This is the local university we have here, Youngstown State, and that's the Air Force Academy. But again, a lot of additional options that we can ultimately choose from within that tools menu. Now, once you're done running a presentation within PowerPoint polling, you can save the data and generate reports and or send the results back to Canvas or the integrated tool that you have at BYU. So I can save it, save session. I would name my session and then click save. Now, once I X out of PowerPoint, I'm going to click Don't Save to the PowerPoint. It's going to bring me right over to this Manage tab. Now, we've not seen this dashboard yet, but this is the initial dashboard that I just switched to, which is the polling tab. So I can jump into PowerPoint polling, which we were just in, but there's also something called Anywhere Polling and Self-Paced Polling that we'll just touch on briefly within today's session. But for right now, I'm going to go to the Manage tab. Now, if I wanted to send these results back to my learning management system, I would click on the name of the course. I would see my roster. And if this was an authentic course, I would actually see a Send Grades button here. And when I click on Send Grades, I have the option to either send an aggregate of all sessions I facilitated, or I can select each individual session that I want to send. Maybe I don't want to send each and every one. I just want to do individual ones. That's an option as well. Now, I want to generate reports on the session. Here's the one that I just did, 729. So I would click Reports, and you're going to see a variety of different reports available. So the first report is a results by question, which is going to show me basically the same thing the PowerPoint did, how you answered on every single question. I could switch to a different report type in the upper right-hand side, including a results by participant report. So the results by participant report will show me exactly how each individual student answered every question. So here's Mike. He's the first one on here. So I can see that indeed he's getting everything correct. I can see his answer choices and response history. Okay, so response history is great too, because I can see if students change their response. And I can even see how long it took Mike to respond to questions. Okay, and I can go ahead and cruise through and see every single person that I have in my class. Now, all these reports can be printed off to a local printer. By the way, if you do individual reports, they would all be on their own separate page. You could even pass this back to the student if you wish to, and you can export this over to a CSV or Excel or the current format, which is HTML. There's other wonderful reports in here, the result detail, which kind of just gives me the nitty gritty on whether or not the students got it right or wrong, how many points did they accumulate. There are attendance reports. So with the attendance report, if you answered a question, you're going to be marked as present, but there actually are more advanced ways to take attendance as well. And as I click down even further, I love being able to show demographic reports. Now, demographics to us basically mean groups. So there's two ways to do a group. I can either assign you a group ahead of time, a competition question, or you assign yourself. Again, we can go through details with one-on-one sessions with your group sessions, but I could see in this case, for every question, how my BYU team answered versus my Cougars team. You can imagine this being the freshmen versus the sophomores, the juniors, and it could have nothing to do with competitions, okay? But grouping can be done ahead of class or during class outside of a competition. Okay, so I have 5 minutes left here, and I'm going to use the 5 minutes to talk about some of these other applications that we have within the Turning Point software, including Anywhere Polling. So I really like Anywhere Polling because with the Anywhere Polling, it allows me to go ahead and really be agile. Okay, so I'm going to have about 100 windows open here, so let me close all those. But the reason I could be agile is I don't have to build anything in advance. Okay, so I could just go ahead and begin asking questions verbally to my students. Okay, so I may ask you, how is your day going? Are you having a great day? And I click on short answer with my drop down. Polling now opens up, and you're going to freely respond to that question. My session is still open, by the way, so you can freely respond to how. Okay, so I have responses coming in. I could see that. I'm actually going to have very similar capabilities that I did in PowerPoint. I'm going to have the same question types. I could still run competitions, but I'm just doing everything agile on the fly. All right, so I have 8 responses. I'll now close my polling, and we can see everybody's having a fantastic day, right? Fantastic to see. Now, with the Anywhere Polling, I can also go ahead and generate those same reports. Okay, so I can save the data just like I did with PowerPoint, and I'm brought right back over to this Manage tab. Okay, so here's my PowerPoint results. Here's my Anywhere results, and I still have access to those same reports, and I still have access to send those points back to the learning management system. So when I click on reports, we didn't do demographics that time, but we absolutely did a results by question, and we could see that. We did results by participants, and we could see that as well. All right, so that is the Anywhere part. Now, the self-paced part is really a testing application. All right, so the testing application, we would build content in advance through this content tab, which you can absolutely do. And I have a quick 3-question self-paced exam for you today. So I'm going to click on Presidents, click on Self-Pace. I would accept sign-ins. And if this was a test, I can show you how you scored afterwards. And once I click OK, it's going to populate everybody into my class. All right. Now that I click Start Polling, you're going to see that you are in a 3-question President's test. So you're taking it real quick there, those 3 questions, pretty basic. Now, as your students are going through those 3 questions, you can click on Live Results in the upper left-hand side, and you can actually see in real time how your students are responding to those questions. Are they getting the question right or wrong? And if it was wrong, you can even hover over top of the X or the check mark and see exactly how they respond to that question. So my great colleague, Greg Thomas here, not so good on question 2 because I can see he actually got that wrong. All right, so once the test is complete, I can see which students are done with the check mark over here where it says status, so in progress and done. I'm going to force it close by stopping the poll. And again, I can save all of this data. I save it the same way that you saw within the Anywhere and the self-pace. And that might have been the quickest I've ever gone through Turning Point, by the way. So if you work with us one-on-one, you're not going to be going in a race car like I just did. But I wanted to make sure that I give you at least a good introduction of what the software can do. And I will tell you in terms of the breakdown, about 70% of our users are really focusing on PowerPoint. It's about another 20% who use Anywhere Polling frequently, and then the self-pace is around the 10% range. Okay, that kind of gives you an idea where most of the traffic is within our software. But gang, with that being said, again, let me leave you with the same thing I started with, which is if you want to use this in a pilot situation, all you have to do is go ahead and either contact Mike, who can contact us, or contact us directly once Tim provides the contact information. And then myself and team, we actually either work with you one-on-one at a time that meets your convenience, or if you want to bring colleagues in, even better. And we make sure that we literally train you step by step and make sure you're successful on what it is you want to do within Turning Point. So with that being said, let me pass it back over to Tim. I apologize that I have to jump right out, but I got to go into a webinar with about 1,200 people. So that's where I'm going to jump next. But Mike, again, thank you so much. Tim, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate you running through that as quickly as you did and as thoroughly as you did. I know that was a tall task with your webinar coming up here. So, And without further ado, we're going to turn things over to Greg Thomas, our Director of Higher Education Sales and Emerging Markets. So Greg?
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
I
Tim,
can hear you.
I'm able to.
Okay.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are muted. I want to thank everyone for allowing us to speak with you today. And I do also want to apologize that I was a minute late. I promised Mike that I wouldn't be. I work with all of our higher education relationships throughout the United States, and something actually ran a little bit long. So sincerely apologize, and I appreciate your patience. So one of the things that I am going to do, and we can always jump back into some questions about what Kevin shared, but I'm going to start sharing my screen and talk about some of the other options that you actually have using Turning Point. So the thing that I like to really let people know is that Turning Point, you can select the tool that we offer that fits your teaching style. As a lot of you are probably familiar with the Anywhere polling, very similar to things that you've seen with iClicker, and there's a little bit more advanced things that you can do in that as well. You also have the ability that you work directly within PowerPoint. You have the self-paced, and then additionally, you have a strictly web-based solution. So is everybody able to see my screen here where it says Turning Point and courses below that?
Yep, we're seeing that.
Okay. So this is something that you can do that is completely browser-based. You don't have to install anything on your computer. You just go to your website in instructor.turningtechnologies.com. You can create content here. And the beautiful thing about this is you can deliver this immediately in real time, engage your students in a synchronous environment, or you can create that same content and you can schedule it out as well. So you could do something completely asynchronous, have students go through. So if we were in a normal environment, you had students in your classroom and you wanted to poll them, you could do that there. But you could also then say, here's your assignment. I want you to go home, read this information, answer these questions about this. You could do that as well for a flipped classroom or in this new environment where you might have students completely participating in an online environment asynchronously. So all I would do is go to either Canvas or, I don't have BYU Learning Suite to actually show you, but you would go through a link in Canvas or BYU Learning Suite. It would direct you here and you would have an account created so you could use any of these options. The really nice thing about this is for your students, they're never going to experience any difference in how they actually participate and see the content. So no matter if you create in PowerPoint, if you do something in Anywhere, if you do something in self-paced, or if you wind up doing something directly in the web, the students have the same exact experience. So you really wind up picking the solution that fits your needs. So once I'm in my course, I would then select in the courses, I would select the course that I wanted to actually use. So if I was teaching biology, I would select my biology course or whichever section of that I was teaching. It looks like we have someone trying to get in. I'm going to admit Nicole. Hopefully, Mike, I didn't take liberties with that and allow someone in who you didn't want in.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'm assuming that they were invited. So
Yep.
welcome, Nicole. So once you're in your course, I'll just go through this quickly, left to right. So content obviously is where I would create my content and then pull from. Roster, I would be able to see the students that are in my course. I would be able to see if they've created their account. Obviously, we're not in a clicker hardware type of situation in current environment, and also if they've applied a subscription. With this free pilot that we're doing with BYU, any student who creates an account is automatically going to have a subscription applied. So all they would have to do is go to that link, create their account. That's automatically going to be applied. In usual circumstances, if a student hadn't completed a certain step, so Terry Floyd from Texas Tech, she had created her account, but she hadn't applied a subscription, I have the ability to manage this right from here. So if I said, okay, I want to make sure that everybody who hasn't created an account or applied their subscription gets an email, the software is intuitive enough. So Terry had created her account, but she hadn't applied her subscription. So it would only send her directions for what she needed to complete. I click send, that's going to go directly to them, and that'll help move your students along. As we know, if you have some freshmen and sophomores, they might not be familiar with certain processes. Giving them a little additional information will help them move along and get to the place where they need to be participating within your course. So if I wanted to schedule something out right now, I actually have a training for University of Houston that I did something live for them, and then I scheduled it out for them to be able to go back and practice some of the things and answer some of the questions that we had gone through. You can see this in real time. Anyone who would wind up answering, you can see how they answered, the charts, and this will refresh and update. You can always just refresh this and get the additional answers that are there. Attendance, something that's very important. I'm actually a former social worker. I did children youth services. I know that the students that actually attend class have the highest likelihood of succeeding within that class. There are some students, we all know, that are brilliant, and we believe they're all brilliant, but there are going to be some who don't have to come to class, and they might get by and get 100% or 98 and get their A. But there are students that really need that interaction. So you can do attendance right from here within your course. In this remote environment, it would strictly be just opening and manually opening attendance. So Tim is actually in my class. He will get a push notification telling him that attendance is being taken. Once he winds up actually going and checking into class, which hopefully Tim has his attendance open and available, I can see in real time that actually I checked in from my phone here. And Tim would also, as he would get in, would wind up being able to show up as well. When I close attendance, this is all available to be sent either to Excel, or when we have that integration with Canvas or BYU Learning Suite, there would be the ability to send those grades directly back to those learning management systems as a column for attendance. One of the things when you get back to a more synchronous and in-person environment, you can actually go here and set GPS location. One of the things that I always like to make known is that we do not track students' attendance outside of the radius that you wind up setting. We only say if they are within the area that we have designated, or if they are actually outside of that. If they are off getting a sandwich and they're not where they're supposed to be, for privacy purposes, we actually don't collect that information. So if students have any apprehension about using this, obviously you would know whether they're there or not, but we don't track where they are outside of that. So some other items that we have available as well, settings. So anything you do within this web environment, you can wind up showing the students their grades directly within the application so they can see how they're progressing to their learning goals within your course. And you also have the ability for participants to review sessions. So the students could then go back and use the information, the content that you've shared with them as flashcards to be able to study later for their courses and make sure that they're keeping on track. That being said, I went through, much like Kevin did, a crash course in all of the abilities there within the web polling, but I will show you quickly how to create that content and what that would look like. So I'm going to go to something here. This one just says session. I don't have any questions. To create content, I would simply go to create. And then from here, I can create different question types. And if I have pre-existing content, I can actually upload a PowerPoint directly into here. And it will come in as an image. And we will find something. Let's see. We'll do 2019 higher ed deck. And as you can see, it's uploading my PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully I didn't pick something with too many slides, because it does take a little bit of time. If you have 75 slides or 100 slides, you might want to give yourself a minute or two and not run right into class and actually wind up trying to poll immediately. So we'll give this a second here. And I know we have things muted here, but I'm going to check the chat and actually see if we have any questions. And doesn't look like we have any chats. So we'll give this another second or two to actually upload this here. But as I mentioned, one of the really nice things about this is you can create this content here and you can use this live or asynchronously. So you don't have to recreate content and go through multiple steps to wind up doing that. It really is beautiful to be able to reuse what you've done in the past. So we're going to let this keep going here for one more second. Obviously, I must have picked the world's largest PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh here, jump back in, and okay, it's actually still creating that PowerPoint for us. So I am going to back out and go into a different course, and I'll show you what that would look like when the PowerPoint is in there. And I apologize, just for the sake of expediency, I don't want you to have to sit and just watch something circle repeatedly because that's going to take a little bit of time, and we don't want to waste the time doing that. So as you can see, I have a PowerPoint that I've brought in that's completely created, and all of these come in as images. So throughout the PowerPoint, I can add questions wherever I would like through here. And it must not be letting me create, as that is still generating that PowerPoint. So I'm going to exit out of this, jump back in, and I apologize for picking the world's largest PowerPoint. I'm very, very bad about doing that, but we'll jump back in here, get into our University of Houston, and as you can see, I have my PowerPoint. Anything I wanted to do that we were doing previously within the PowerPoint application for PowerPoint polling, I can do that here as well. So if I wanted to add that hotspot question that Kevin was mentioning, I can add that in simply by adding my question in text. You'll get some content text here as I upload my image. I will add my image. We will find Tito here. Tito is our 17-year-old pug. He's basically become my mascot for any of these trainings that we wind up doing. And I will add a hotspot, identify Tito's nose, and much like Kevin wound up saying earlier, you would wind up being able to use this and click on the target that you need. I can add points if I wanted to. I can mark this question as anonymous. At that point, I would see that a student had answered, but I wouldn't be able to see how they answered. So if you were in a class where you were talking about some sensitive nature topics, you would be able to mark those anonymous. We know that students have participated, but we don't necessarily know what they answered. So that's a very valuable tool as well. I would click save here. And from this point, I have content that's ready to be able to be polled. I could start this live and actually have this immediately be polling as we are, and we did with PowerPoint as well. Or I can schedule this out asynchronously. So if we ended class and I wanted students to do an assignment, I could have this start immediately now. I could change this time if I so chose. And I can select the end time. So if I said we are going to reconvene on Friday at 10 a.m., I could set that, and then I'm ready to schedule this out. Any student who has the application installed on their phone or their tablet would wind up getting a push notification. When I schedule this, if the students don't have that, you can actually wind up sharing a link with them as well. That would go directly to their email, or you could redirect that to Learning Suite or to Canvas, whichever best fit your needs. But if I wanted to pull this live and synchronously, I could click Start. Obviously, the course Texas Tech doesn't apply to you. I'm just using something that I had already created. But the session ID would be testing 1, 2, 3, 4. I would start the session. And if you would like to join as a student, you can go ahead and do so and see that this is the exact same experience that the students wind up having, whether you were going through PowerPoint anywhere or self-paced. And you can see that I've joined the session. In the top right, you can see every student who has joined the session. And then the little phone here that shows up in the top right, as we progress through the presentation, you'll actually wind up seeing that number populate as students answer. So you can see my slide here. Simply advance by clicking the play button. And now I will poll this question. And I think that this goes without saying, even though you saw me set the correct answer, I assume that everybody knows where Tito's nose is. So as the answers come in, you can see those populate. I know that every answer is in for all the students who have joined my session. I can click stop. If I wanted to show this in real time, similar to how Kevin mentioned with the word cloud, I could show results always. So that would be able to see in real time what's actually happening. I could do review only, which would show only after polling has closed. And if I wanted to be, just collect data and not necessarily let the students know, or I wanted to do some of that pre-post type of assessment that Kevin mentioned, I could select never as well. For our purposes right now, I'll click review only and we'll click stop. Everyone did a great job. I'm sure Tito is excited. You might actually hear him vocalize that here in a few moments. But one of the beautiful things about this is if you're using Zoom or if you're using, GoToMeeting or Teams or anything like that, as long as you have the audio, students will see every single slide or question in the presentation. So you could use this as an end-to-end presentation tool. Similar to PowerPoint as well, all of those slides will wind up showing up coming in. 5 minutes before I jumped on, University of Houston, where is that located? You would just click on the appropriate answer, click stop. I think a lot of us want to be in Hawaii, regardless of what that question would have been. I think Hawaii is going to be an appropriate answer. Advance through, obviously, again, you can see the slide that is a non-question slide. You can add in content such as videos simply by creating a text slide, non-question content, so you don't have to bounce back and forth to the original PowerPoint. Once you have it uploaded, you can create all that content here as well. So once I've got to the point where I've ended my session and I have all of my students' answers for today, similar to what you saw with what Kevin did earlier, you have the ability to save your session. This is automatically saved throughout, so if you happen to have a storm and you lose internet connection, it's going to save your results regardless, but you can always change this as well. So we will call this BYU test, and I will click end, and my results are now saved within my course. So if I go to results, I can wind up seeing my grade book, as you would see. I'm the only person who is enrolled in my course, so that's the reason that I actually have points for myself and no one else has points. But you can go and look by individual sessions, similar to what we did in PowerPoint. So if I wanted to look results by question, I could see all of those. Results detail, grade book style of view. So what was the question? What was the answer? Did they get it right or wrong? And their score for that. You could look by individual participant. I'm the only individual participant here. Click into the details and I can see how that individual participant did on every question. And then also we could look at guests. I'm not going to call anyone out like Kevin did for me for getting the second president of the United States wrong.
I thought you could call me out for misspelling my own last name on that. So I have fat fingers.
Nah, but you have the ability to look at all those different attributes there in data that your students have wound up providing for you. From here, if I wanted to send this back to Learning Suite or to Canvas, I would simply click Export, and then I would have the option below CSV Export to then select the appropriate LMS, and it would send a grade column back directly to the LMS. You can export to a CSV if you're someone who likes to manipulate data. You have that ability as well. Very simple, easy to use, pretty straightforward. Click Create. I think where this would really benefit a lot of you is if you have that asynchronous element to your course. If you wanted to be able to create content and share it synchronously or share it asynchronously, you have that ability to do so. So at this point, I know we're getting close to time, and I can be quite loquacious. So I'd like to open things up for questions to make sure that we can address any things that might have popped up in your head as we went through the presentation. And if you have questions specifically about what Kevin presented before I took over control, feel free to ask questions about those as well. And it looks like we have a chat here. So it's Denise is asking, who pays for Turning Point? The students, I assume. How much does it cost for a semester? If they have more than one professor using Turning Point, do they pay for each class? Or is it one payment for all courses that semester? That's an excellent question. And as I mentioned, former social worker, this is a very important topic for me as well. So this initial pilot, this is free to the university. So anyone who wants to use Turning Point for fall, there's going to be no cost for fall semester. So all you would have to do is create an account, get your roster. Students, when they create an account, based on your byu.edu email domain, students will automatically be applied a subscription. So for our purposes for fall, there's actually no cost. When it winds up going into, further down the line in a normal scenario, we offer 1 semester, 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, 5 year, depending on what the student's needs are. If you have specific programs that you know you're going to be using this for multiple years, obviously the price is a little bit lower when you buy that longer duration. The cost for 1 semester is $14.99 if the students were to purchase directly from us. The cost for 1 year is $20.99. It goes the whole way up to 5 years for $41.99. That's basic pricing just off the top of my head. This isn't anything that we had further discussions with BYU, and I'm sure that that's something that we could have more in-depth discussions to, look at that cost structure and what it means for BYU students. So, but that hopefully that gives you a basic idea of a ballpark of where we are. So any student who has a subscription is registered for any course that uses at BYU. They don't have to purchase. So if they're taking biology, chemistry, and psychology, and all 3 of those courses are using, they actually can use that. If you have a student that happens to be taking a class, say at Salt Lake City Community College, and they've purchased for a course there, and then they wind up coming to BYU, if they're actively subscribed, they can use it multiple institutions at one time. That's one of the things that I know that we're one of the only vendors that does this, that honors that subscription, because we understand that it does cost for students to go to school, and they're incurring that cost, and they're taking that on. So we're very mindful of the fact that students, take on that cost. So we try and make it as cost effective as possible. Hopefully, Denise, that answered your question. do we have any additional questions? Or Denise, feel free to jump into the chat there again if you do have a question, you know, a little bit deeper into that. I'm happy to answer that as well. I feel like I'm actually lecturing again, where I want to call on people who are in the participant list within Zoom. This either means we've done a fantastic job, or you have the deer in the headlights look. So I'm hoping that it was that we've done a fantastic job explaining this.
I think it was pretty clear. But does anybody have any questions? Oh, there's a new message. Let's see. Yeah, confirmation of what I just said.
Yeah. Thank you. Great to have positive feedback.
So I don't know if you guys want to put your contact information maybe in the chat, so that those that might be interested in reaching out can do that. But yeah,
Happy to do so.
we sure appreciate you guys presenting and everyone for attending and we'll stay on for a couple more minutes if anybody has any other questions. So.
Yeah. And I did, thank you, Len, and everyone. Meredith, thank you as well. We did throw our contact information into the chat. Feel free to copy that and reach out to us at any time. I'm actually free, and Tim also put Kevin's in there as well. I'm actually free for a few moments, so we can stay on and make sure that if anybody does have any additional questions, we're able to make sure we get those answered for you.
And one thing I did want to mention is that we are currently actively setting up an integration with BYU Learning Suite. So that should be up and running by the time the semester starts.
That is correct. And one of the things that, you know, is really valuable for you is being able to get those rosters directly from BYU Learning Suite or from Canvas, and being able to get those grades directly back. And I think that's something that is a little difficult for us to demonstrate because we don't personally have access to that, obviously, with the turningtechnologies.com email address. So that's something that we were happy to demonstrate for you and work through that as well. All right. Looks like we still have some folks on. I'm wondering if they have any additional questions.
I had a question. I was wondering, and I got in a little bit late, so I apologize if you already covered this, but I work at the library and we do a lot of, 1 or 2 day classes. So if it's not a semester long class that they're signed up for, is this something that's still, like if you don't set up the class of students, does that still work as an option?
We can definitely talk about in the long term what that scenario would look like. Right now, for fall purposes, if you wanted to test this out, any student with a byu.edu email domain, or faculty for that matter, so if you wanted to use this for faculty senate or other meetings, they're automatically going to be provided a subscription for fall when they create their account. It's automatically applied. There's nothing else they have to do. And we do have some different manners of how we could manage that for the library, where we could create basically a instructor account. We've traditionally used those more for corporate, for trainings, because they have those 1 and 2 day things, but we can accommodate that as well and get you some information on that. That would take me a little bit of time. I'd have to actually pull up some information to let you know what that pricing would look like.
Okay.
But for now, it's free.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Matt. Scrolling through, Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you, Tim and Greg. We'll let everybody go, and we sure appreciate it, and we'll be in touch, of course, Tim and Greg. For those that are still in the meeting, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out. Make sure you grab their email address from the chat window, or you can contact me at the CTL. So thank you very much, and we'll see hopefully see some of you in 2 weeks when we reconvene.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody.